No, I'm serious. It's one of those things. I've agreed with you. It's something that the city desperately needs to add more flair to it, because there, like you said, with the Americana stuff, it's a great bit of culture, but I don't want to be like Asheville, and I don't want to be like Bristol, and I kind of like parts of the stuff, like pieces of it. Like I like that we're closely aligned with Jonesboro, and having the masters and PhD in storytelling and all that. We're having the masters in bluegrass and stuff. That's really cool claim to fame stuff, but I like a little bit of other stuff.
Yeah. And I like a little edgier stuff. That's who I am. I'm the metal fan. I like loud, crunching stuff, but that doesn't mean that's all I like. I like all kinds of music, but that's something that it's hard to find.
Or just to convince people on the performing side to do it, because they're also scared.
Jazz.
Yeah, I've been wondering. Oh gosh.
Well, this week is the second annual jazz festival.
Yep.
Locked up in the Carnegie,
which is kind of an off-putting thing for a lot of locals, and
it's what, $25 to get in.
$25 for 2 days. It's $15 for an individual.
That's not too bad. That's still cheaper than what the whole Blue Plum Founders Park special thing was. It kind of got them into a little heat. Somebody's got to get the money. No, I don't know. I'd love to see more blues and jazz. It's just hard to convince local performers too, and I feel weird if it's just national people coming in. Then it doesn't feel as homegrown as much.
Yeah, that's true, and
it doesn't. Honestly, it's not sustainable.
I'll tell you, the hardest thing about Secret Society wasn't managing the performers or getting the venues going and making sure everything's right there. It was trying to convince people to stop watching television and come out to see a variety show, not a band. This is not a music show.
It's a street performance indoors,
and people,
essentially.
Locals a lot of times couldn't wrap their brains around it. We would have every show we had, except for maybe 2, we had a decent turnout. I was all right with it. And we never charged. We asked for donations. And that's part of what I'm about to say. But people don't want to become part of a scene. They don't want to give a chance to something new, because
it's why there's a weird dislike, at least in Johnson City, of buskers.
Yeah.
And I never understand why, because I loved it when Demo Waffle would just come out and just, it would be like a New Orleans jazz band type thing, or, to see like the Unifier stuff doing the thing on First Friday. That was fantastic. Great. But it's just something that, I don't know what it is, if it's business owners or just the locals.
I think part of the problem is just culturally, we don't have that. We're not a big city. We don't see it often. So when we see it, our brains are just like, oh, look away, walk past.
It could be that people are overwhelmed.
Yeah.
It could be that's too weird. We are very conservative. We don't kin to noise artists wrapping microphones around their necks and screaming for their mommies. I'm like, you're lost, because it was awesome.
God, that was still the best part.
I
think that was the first show of the Secret Society.
I think you're
maybe
right.
even the first act.
It changed the way I looked at that stuff.
Oh my goodness!
At one point,
where he was fully prostrating and
at one
shirt
point, the entire audience looks back at me like, "Are you going to do something?" And I'm like, "This is awesome."
And then like the infamous Todd Burris with his skull, comes up with a handwritten like cross or something and hands it to him, and like nobody gets it except like a handful who like have been to the Hideaway and have seen similar stuff.
Right.
And it's like, yeah, this is a new thing for you, isn't it, folks?
And that's why my show has to be mainstream. I want those people that are not exposed, because to me, if you can stretch those boundaries a little bit, what other good things can you make a difference in, But I'm afraid that the locals they don't want to invest in art. They see that's something you should be doing for free. That's something you should be doing out on the street, and I can watch it from across the street where I don't have to get close to you. In Asheville, you throw on a show like we did, and it's going to be a packed house. I could,
without even trying.
Right now, I could book a packed house in Asheville doing that show probably twice a month. But that's not what I want to do. That's not
transposing it to here.
I mean, I'm performing in Asheville with plenty of other things, and that's cool, but it's hometown.
You kind of want to bring it home. You're like, I want to bring a gift to you guys. Maybe you'll enjoy it.
And I think you do a lot of this. You chip away.
I keep hoping that maybe just that little bit here and there people don't realize, like, there's a lot of hidden gems in the Tri-Cities of like famous YouTube channels and YouTubers that they don't even know, celebrities. They're just literally walking the downtown streets and they have no clue, because those famous people go jet set off to LA, New York, Asheville, whatever. They never once consider performing or doing something local.
A part of it is
there's no reaching out to them.
The local community will not. I'm a professional MC. I've traveled, if I wanted to, I could travel every weekend picking up gigs, but I can't get a gig locally. I'll do the monster truck races once a year and maybe a couple other little things.
I've noticed that with a lot of like MC and other host type folks, that's kind of the same thing like Jose Castillo, where he's off in New Hampshire or down in Austin, Texas or Daytona, and I'm like, oh, that's right. The Tri-Cities really isn't big enough.
I wish there was, I used to
it's really... It's a unique cultural thing and history, because like the more I read about it, like going all the way back to Fort Watauga, and just there's this attitude of this leave me alone. Don't get off my... I don't care what side you are. I'll pick the side that just leaves me alone the most. Yeah. Like every time there's a war, a battle, that's really all it is. It's just give me the side that leaves me my property alone. Right. And I feel like that's kind of what we're trying to bust into is we don't want to leave you alone. We want to get your eyeballs for 2 seconds. If you look away in disgust, fine, but at least you looked.
Do you think, and this is again from my own personal bent, do you think, and this is just a question to start the conversation, that people think that local stuff can't be any good? Have we been so indoctrinated since the late 60s with television that we look to American Idol, we look to all of these national celebrities?
Which is weird, because they don't realize that most of that stuff is sourced from small towns where these people were just doing karaoke or street performing in that small town. Yeah.
Started as buskers.
Yeah, I mean, like Kevin Casper Glasper, amazing dancer that started from nothing. He was just, I remember he was performing at the next store and a couple other stuff. Professor Chris Dula had got him to come out for a charity event that I was at, and just a couple other stuff. He just kept building up, and from 1 second he was just copying what he saw maybe on YouTube or in culture, and then all of a sudden, next step, he's going to conferences, meeting with world famous music video dancers and performers.
Yeah, and he moved. He starts off with Casper the Entertainer is one of my favorite local performers. He starts off doing hip hop dancing, but he grows into everything: ballet, tap. I mean, Casper is just a dancer.
Which is what you kind of have to do, fusion, the whole bit. I mean, he went from, like I said, nothing to now I think he's teaching 6, 7, 8 classes at like 5 different places.
Yeah, I've talked to him. He's going to be on the show with us. I really look forward to talking to him and get. I've had a lot of questions ever since I first met him at Secret Society, and I can't wait to get some answers for him.
And he's a rare person in the sense of he has a big heart to the point where even the I don't want to say smallest, but the least connected person in society, if they reach out to him and say, hey, I'm getting on a Greyhound tomorrow morning because my family hurt me, and he'll be there first thing at 8 a.m. At the bus station, sitting next to him, talking to him, being their friend. It's amazing.
He is just a fantastic, and there are a lot of people like that, and that's who we're trying to get to. So, load us up with your suggestions on who else we can get. We've already got a huge list, but we got to keep it going because we're in this for the long term.
Like another guy would be Lee Williams.
I don't know.
Interesting guy. He moved from Fayetteville, North Carolina. Built up a reputation there. He's a spokesperson for Oppo suits, which are the crazy design suits. I've worn a few. Stormtrooper
those are fantastic.
Suit. Yeah, they sell them at Kohl's, but they sell them direct through Oppo. He actually is an ambassador for them and sells them direct and ends up selling them for cheaper. When I bought my Onomatopoeia bottom boom suit, he actually hand-delivered it to my house.
Wow.
I was in Florida at the time, but it was interesting that he hand-delivered it. And he's a spokesperson for Soxy Socks, which is like a crazy sock company, a tie company that does crazy bow ties.
Tie company, we got to have him on the show.
Oh, he's insane. Not just that.
I have a tie problem. I can't get enough ties. That's the problem.
I feel you. That's why I'm with bow ties right now. I just keep getting every kind and shoes. But he his interesting YouTube videos is he ends up promoting for car companies a lot and working with them. And there's this one video where this guy pretends he's kind of a redneck guy, and he's trying to sell this guy as this Afro black man in a suit, and he's like, and the guy's like, well, if you can wear a crazy suit and jump out of a plane, I might buy your car. And then like it cuts over, and there he is jumping out of a plane in this crazy suit. And then shows that footage to the guy, and the guy's like, well, I guess I gotta buy the car now. It's crazy.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I love it. And then he does his alter personality, Tex Williams, where he puts on a hat, and he just recently got an awesome classic style mic, Elvis Presley type mic, and he does all kinds of crazy lip syncing and stuff.
Oh, that sounds great.
Oh, he's so much fun. If there's another secret society, he definitely needs to be someone that would perform.
That's awesome.
Because he's got a great personality and positive thinking, which I love.
I think if there's another secret society, it's going to be a web fusion show. I think you're going to have some interactive web stuff, and it'll be kind of different. I'm thinking.
I know
but he sounds like a fascinating guy.
Yeah. I keep happening upon little people that are gems like that. Like I was bringing up Christopher Bowes, who happens to be the lead singer and guitar player for two bands out of Scotland, Glory Hammer, and then the infamous pirate metal band Ailstorm. Not Hailstorm, but Ailstorm.
Ailstorm. It's pirate metal, and it's not bad.
Oh, yeah. I mean, their music videos are crazy. Their music videos, they're on like a ship that's just rolling around, and he's sitting there playing his guitar, and it's just like wild over the top stuff.
It is. Entertaining.
Too awesome. They sold out crowds when they tour all across the UK and the US.
That's what I want in Johnson City. I want Ailstorm.
Yeah, I just want the craziest of the crazy stuff all thrown into one show. And then the people go, whoa, I didn't know this was even a thing here.
Yeah.
I mean,
right now out there somewhere is somebody thinking an original thought that needs to be seen. And those are the folks we're looking for. We want to find the people that have that this will never work crazy idea, because those are the ones that are going to be the ones that might lead to something that really is the next big thing.
Yeah, because I'm not looking for virality across the entirety of the internet or the U.S. or even Tennessee or the Tri-Cities even. I kind of want, like, Johnson City to actually note its locals.
That's the purpose of this
that's my
show.
main focus. Yeah.
That's the purpose of this show. We don't talk to...
and part of it is because I don't drive, so I'm a little biased towards if it's outside the city and I can't walk there or take an Uber, Lyft, whatever, then why do I notice? Right.
That's a good point. I travel all the time, and it makes me miss home. And then I get here and I'll see things that, that's great, guys, but you're looking at this big national ad or business coming to downtown. It's like, that's great.
And people think Johnson City is like so small and hokey. And then I was just recently in Jackson, Mississippi, and it's an interesting city where they have about the same population as Johnson City, yet it's the capital city and the most populous city in Mississippi.
Huh.
Yeah.
Interesting. I had no idea.
And then, like, it's sad it's weird that they have a civil rights leader whose father was the previous mayor a decade ago. He took over as mayor, yet the city, as progressive as this mayor is, and the city council, the city's just riddled with potholes, falling apart, and all the white folks happen to move to the adjoining suburb city of Brandon, Missouri, where there's this fancy, massive, boundless playground, and the schools are top notch, and
right.
It's really sad, and I don't want Johnson City to turn into that like it kind of did when it was advantageous that the TPA had to go fix Boone Lake, because now it kind of scared some of those folks around the lake who their whole focus is going out to entertainment at the marina or something. Now they can't.
Which is huge.
Yeah.
Which all my friends since college back in the 90s loved going out to the marina, and I'm like, well, this is great.
I mean, it's okay.
I love the water.
I don't hate it.
Cool,
it's just I want more for this area than Dad Rock, Yacht Rock. It's one piece.
The classic rock bands playing the covers.
Yeah, it's one piece to be listening to Jimmy Buffett all night long, but I want someone who is in drag lip syncing Jimmy Buffett as a bouffant-haired woman, busking downtown. Like when I was in New Orleans for Mardi Gras, there was this guy who was doing cross-dressing as Elsa from Frozen.
Wow.
And had his own car battery hooked up to a karaoke machine with plastic crates, and it was all on wheels and stuff. And he would just pull up to an intersection, and then as people walk by, he'd just hold the mic out and say, "Here, sing something." With an amp, and it's beautiful. And no one was doing it. My friend, he about your age, he dyed his hair pink just for the event.
Yeah.
Just so he could stick out. And he was like, screw it, I'll do karaoke. Because he's the kind of guy where he also wants to get out of his comfort zone.
Yeah.
And it's beautiful. They just start randomly doing karaoke out of nowhere, and it's just people are walking by going, yeah, I'd love to see random stuff like that.
Yeah.
Just a street performer that goes out to Founders Park in that little amphitheater in the circular area like the hula hoop people do with their flow hooping.
Yeah.
I'd love to see the local news report on that and go, hey, did you guys know that there's people just doing drum circles at the pavilion or
and
hula
unfortunately
hooping?
Around here, the news coverage they would get is, look at this nuisance. There were complaints, because I know that this happened with
because that gets eyeballs.
That's been my biggest thing is I've switched to a big focus on philanthropy. Anything I'm doing with events, I'm attempting to donate proceeds to philanthropy because I was homeless and had experienced that side of things. I want to donate money to charities that help with that. And it's nice when there are actual organizations that do it, unlike some of the downtown business owners and organizations that sadly seem very anti-homeless. And I'm very disappointed in that when I see that.
Yeah, it's
because they don't understand, some of the people, they have literal PTSD or something, and they just can't stand being in a temperature controlled room with bunk beds of 40 guys. They just can't do that.
Sure,
They'd rather just be under a bridge. Yeah, and they're not hurting anyone.
And that's the thing. I mean, to me, honestly, it's not hurting because people have lived under the bridge downtown for decades. Ever since I was a kid,
Yeah, I can remember it.
I would go out with the guys that were camping under the bridge and hang out with them. But I can understand downtown if I was downtown a couple weeks ago and this guy was passed out drunk at 9 o'clock in the morning. And I mean, he was surrounded by 40s and he's just camped out right there at the breezeway, sleeping right in the middle of it, just dead asleep. I can understand them not wanting somebody who's drunk and passed out outside their place.
Yeah, but see, they ended up compounding the problems on itself. It's a creature of their own making, where they had taken out the gazebo in Majestic Park. Then they stripped out all the plant material, so it was just this barren ground. All because supposedly Allied Dispatch was going to lease out the Main Street Antique Company that used to be next to the hideaway.
They also pulled out all the benches around the library. They took out all of the big bushes at the library. And I knew lots of people. I live near there. I would go in and hang out with those people, but because give them medical. I would buy those little $1 medical kits, and I'm like, guys, take these because they were good to talk to. They were nice people.
They have interesting stories sometimes. They've seen stuff that no one else has seen because they have the literal time. And who knows? I don't know. I just feel like there's a lot of potential, at least in talking to them and treating them like the humans they are, instead of just assuming they're not human and should just be routed out.
Well, I think part of the problem too in Johnson City is, I think a lot of people are saying we want them out because we want downtown to be nice. But have you ever been to a downtown in any big city that didn't have homeless people? It is a problem endemic in America just because we have a poor, we don't treat homeless people well. But I think part of the problem in Johnson City specifically is people going, yes, this will fix it, and not realizing,
it's a bigger problem.
This is a
just
much
fixing
bigger
this
problem.
Street. There's a lot more.
And the homeless people are way more scared of you than you are of them. I mean, it's got to be terrifying to just be in an open place, no place to call home.
Well, and it's not going to help to be cruel. I know every few years the police will go and tear up their tents, which
they cut down where you're talking about the bridge. They cut out all along what used to be the East Tennessee, North Carolina narrow gauge railroad. They took out all the trees, that entire tree line that was blocking the railroad, They just ripped all it out and kicked all the homeless people out, which I've heard people talking about, oh, we should close down Newman's or move the bus station out into North John City where the power board's at. Because the thought is, oh, well, other cities are shipping in veterans or homeless people to our city because of the great medical care connected to the VA, connected to the university, connected with good transportation, relatively speaking, in Tennessee. And even if that's true, that should be a point of pride.
Yeah.
That we actually are so awesome, we can accept people that no one else will take in.
And if we actually took care of them better, that could be a point of pride is, listen, we take care of our people. But wherever they're from, wherever they are.
Maybe it's a little bit fashionable to be callous to such things to a lot of people right now. In a political climate where, the administration is trying to hold.
It's a weird political climate place anyway, the Tri-Cities itself.
It's enabling people to just go, yeah, they're just filthy and get out.
Yeah, it's the most paleo traditional conservative area butting heads with the most progressive, and yet both sides who claim to be the most loving, supportive, sadly agree on one thing, which is disliking homeless people or disaffection people. It's really weird to me because it's it reminds me of reading the history of the Prohibition era, where all of a sudden you had progressive women who didn't want to be beat on by their men saying, well, the reason we're being beat on is because of alcohol. And then they get together with the Baptist ministers and then pass Prohibition. And it's a creature of its own making and ends up making things worse, hence the history of Little Chicago and Johnson City in the first place. And Jake walking, Jake leg, and
right.
It's stuff like that really is interesting. And I wonder if they'll realize, hopefully soon, that hating on the homeless folks will actually end up biting them in the foot in the future. Because, I don't know, I just love to see some of these people because I feel like that causes a chilling effect on the busking and the street performers. And then also the underground alternative scene in general.
Because you're right, and many of my friends are buskers. They come from all over the country. I meet them on my travels, and I'll hang out and talk to the buskers. I feel comfortable. It's like when I go to a fancy hotel event, I tend to go talk to the people that are serving.
The best things I've ever seen were street performances.
Yeah, and so I bring my friends who are buskers are like, hey, Voodoo lives in Johnson City. We'll swing through there, and they get so much grief, and they're like, what? We do this all over. Why are people grumpy? And then what was it? A couple Blue Plums ago, they wanted to have buskers.
Yeah, but they were charging a $7,500 fee to each busker.
That's what I found out after I told these busker friends of mine. I'm like, hey, this is going on. Contact this person.
Part of that was in response to what I mentioned earlier with Demon Waffle, because that was a year after Demon Waffle was going through the breezeway, just loudly blaring, going, hey, we're going to be, we're going to be playing at Capone's tomorrow.
Them shut down the main street during a Blue Plum out in front of the old Lefties, I think it was. They played in the doorway, and the street stopped. Nobody could get to either stage. Nobody could go left. Nobody could go right.
Yeah, that's when the Mecca was still at the corner where the Korean Taco House is now.
That's where that was my Mecca for decades.
Yeah.
I was there. God, high school. I was sneaking in there drinking underage. Somebody had to do it. It's too late now. Statute of limitations.
Too late. No, that's why I have a deep fondness for the Hideaway and for this place, the Mecca, because of that. It's the I don't give a fuck attitude about what powers may be that tell me I should act this way. I'm gonna just do stuff. Recently, that was one of the things that came up. There's a rift between the Umoja Festival and the Mecca, which I didn't even know.
Oh.
Yeah, apparently there's this weird tension where Umoja doesn't really work with her, so she just kind of responds with, fine, I'll do my own thing. And she's actually talking about, Chanda, the owner of the Mecca, is actually talking about doing a black festival outside Umoja, which, whatever you think of Umoja, competition's great. More festivals,
and
more
it's not
stuff.
even necessarily a competition. I mean, more festivals. Heck
yeah, I'm for it. The more, the better. I mean, that's why I felt about Corazon Latino when I started seeing them pop up. I was like, that's awesome.
Favorite festivals in town.
Yeah. And then
The
to
food is
see,
so good.
I wish they did the Celtic Festival again,
Yeah.
that they did like once or twice. I thought that was so awesome, but then it kind of branched off away from ETSU, and
Well, I know
it's
the
its own
Celtic
thing.
Festival in Sycamore Shoals was cool for a few years, but then it sort of became a Renaissance fair,
That's the
which
one I
is
used to go to.
also cool. But it's always a weird mix of like people doing Ren Fair things.
Oh, it's amazing
then
that they, about every other
people-
week, they're doing training, like in different types of weaponry and
Yeah.
Celtic culture out at the biker church.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, which is, I would have never thought that those two would mesh.
Huh.
Like, okay.
But I guess I can see it.
I can see
if
it,
they're,
but-
if they're from, they consider themselves proud of their heritage and that type of fighting style. Well, just like anyone else, go for
I
it.
can remember as a kid seeing people doing where they're dressing up in their own cosplay night outfits in Kiwanis Park downtown.
I used to know those cats.
I was like, what is this?
A good buddy of mine was a member. Not a good buddy. The buddy of my lady friend buddy was in it, but it was a hoot. That was back in the early days of the Society for Creative Anachronism. There we go. Took me a minute.
I love that.
But it was a hoot, and they were doing, as recently as just a few years ago, they had foam fighting where First Watch is now.
Yeah.
That empty field, they would
Yeah.
have foam fighting over there, and that stuff is so much fun too. I love watching it. I've
Isn't
never
that
wanted to
LARPing?
participate.
LARPing?
I may know a thing or two about LARPing.
But I'm saying, isn't that LARPing?
No, it is
No,
not.
no.
It is not.
LARPing's more of like a
You have to have a
turn-by-turn
role-playing game.
story. Yeah, it's like a role-playing game.
Live action role play means you're imposing role playing rules, and you're trying to recreate that in the real world. Instead of using figures, you
Pick a character, and it's kind of like a ad hoc, ad-lib character
But
to
so these
fit the
people
mode
weren't-
of the story.
Now.
There's a
foam
couple
fighters-
local groups that do it, but
Foam fighters, they don't do necessarily character stuff.
It's just.
They'll say that I may be Sir Robin of Camelot,
Yeah.
but that's just a name and a persona. But it's a point-based system where
Interesting.
you get a hit in. And
like fencing then, in that sense,
It
almost.
is. It is a lot like fencing, except you're using the actual fighting techniques. And say you're hit on the arm, if you're hit, you're required to say 2 points, depending on how if 2 points for arms. I think 4 points for torso, and you have to yell it out. And you get hit so many times, you're dead, and you have to lay there, and you can't do anything else. So it's an actual combat game, whereas LARPing is a game. Magic
Okay.
missile, magic missile, magic missile. I throw a
Okay.
mean magic missile. I'm just saying. I have LARPed
You look like an
a few
intense
times.
LARPer.
It sounds really fun, actually.
It was at
I'd
cons.
love to do it.
I was young. All the cool kids were doing it. We were attractive young people. You know how it is.
Yeah, that's one of the exciting things I have to admit in the past decade is the growth in Comic Cons and alternative cons recently.
Let's talk about your promotion stuff lately.
Yeah, when Jessica Lange kind of moved out of comedy and promoting and booking, and I was kind of helping her out behind the scenes, pushing it as hard as I could. I even made custom pogs for her comedy show because I have a pog making machine.
I have one of
Nice.
those pogs.
Yeah,
That's right.
Oh,
I
you do?
remember that.
Okay.
I got one of those pogs. Yeah,
Yeah. So
pogs. I remember being
was
an
just
angry young man in the early '90s, going, "What is this in my comic?"
I was just talking to her at one point, and like 3 a.m, and she was musing, and I was like, we need some crazy promotional thing. And I was like, what about Pogs? Nobody's heard of those in a while, and it used to be a thing when Mojo Skateboard Shop was still in the mall. That was around the time that Pogs were a thing. And I remember that half their store was dedicated just to, you walk in and there was just buckets full of Pogs. And I was thinking, man, everybody was just loving that. And now it just would be so anachronistic to today's culture, almost like having troll dolls or something where it
Perfect
pops in
choice.
and out. Yeah.
Pogs.
Yeah, and she had a local artist commissioned who had made her logo at the time, and it just happened to fit with a little cropping, and I was like, all right, let's do this. So I made like a couple hundred, and she was just giving them out. But anyways, when she got out of doing comedy stuff, it kind of died off for a bit, and Sam Rucker, who was hosting the Smoky Mountain Comedy Showcase, he had had a child, so he backed away quite a bit because it's very time consuming. And I just didn't want to give up on the comedy scene because I realized if you're not doing it, people forget that it exists, whatever it is.
Like any muscle, if you're not using it,
yeah,
you're
if there's no
lose it.
content, people don't care about
Right.
you. So I thought, okay, well, I guess the only thing I could do is to do what I don't want to do, which is just to go ahead and book it and promote it myself and host it if need be, which I've done. So now I've done a couple shows down at the Hideaway with national acts because thanks to Jess, she had the connections where I'd have a national act opened up by several local acts like Tara Smith, who's an employee at Main Street Pizza and also now part-time bartending at the Hideaway. Great comedian. A couple other local comedians. Hunter Roberts, he's come out. And Cliff
Hunter is one of the funniest
Cliff is
guys
retired, but I still want him to come out too.
I
He's
think
hilarious.
Cliff might be back.
He
Talking
might.
to him last week, I got the impression that it
He's
might
inching
work
towards
its
it.
way back around. He's got a lot of ideas and stuff.
And I understand, like you were talking about with the whole political climate, part of it is people who are of a different political thought process than the current administration, you just lose. It's too much like white noise to create comedy from. It's not like, oh, it's a one gab. It's Gerald Ford tripped out of a plane or something.
Right.
It's just nonstop. So by the time you try to create one joke,
There's already something
there's already
else.
new stuff, and people totally forgot the previous gaps or deliberate awful
I had
things.
not even thought of that. That's a really good
Yeah,
point.
it's too much.
We live in absurd times, and so how do you make a joke of that?
Well,
Yeah, because
that's right.
just sorry, go
Oh,
ahead.
sorry. I was just gonna say I'm surprised the Onion hasn't gone out of business because I read so many headlines now that I legit think of the Onion.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah,
I'm
you,
like,
you almost can't
oh,
tell
no,
the
this
difference
is CNN.
sometimes. I have to look. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Jess had a great joke about she was hoping who would win was Putin because he was the perfect candidate, and I'm not going to tell a joke because I would butcher it. But anyway, she was going on about all these great qualities of how he just openly murders people and all this stuff, and then come to find out, the current administration, Trump kind of says same stuff. Like I could, kill somebody in Times Square or something, and just all this crazy tweet storm stuff. There's just no way a comedian could do anything about it,
Right.
unless you stick to like a few things, like if you talk about abortion or something or marijuana or whatever. But other than that, like outside of the norm mainstream comedy stuff, you lose yourself in it. If you're just trying to respond to Trump, like
Yeah.
Colbert is trying to build his entire career now as just a Trump response, and it was good ratings for a while, but already it's repetitive.
Yeah, the absurdity
Every day.
overtakes the comedy. I mean,
Yeah, it's just constant defer and deflect.
and just numb is part of it too. It's like how much more?
Yeah, 3
this
scandals come
ridiculousness.
out, and then a crazy thing just blinds it out.
Yeah.
So it's been really hard to find comedians who are alternative enough, who are kind of like a Carlin-esque type attitude towards their comedy, where they're
don't
kind of
rely on current
ignoring.
events.
Yeah. So their comedy can be somewhat timeless. So you could pick up their album off iTunes 10 years from now, and you'll still just be rolling over laughing. That's really hard to do around here. Hunter Roberts is pretty good at that. Cliff is pretty good at that as local comedians. It's just trying to bring up new faces.
Right.
And without the next door comedy stuff, there's no open mic now. So the closest thing we have now is what's here every Friday night is an open mic of spoken word comedy, and etc. That's about it.
So what would, if someone's watching, they think they're funny, they want, I mean, this might be an opportunity to get to someone who's got the ability, if not the chops yet. Should they just come out here and
Oh yeah. Every
get some
Friday, just
echo?
come out. Even if you just come out to watch, if that's all you want to do, at least you're having more eyeballs as an audience member, because comedy is hit or miss, and a lot of people just aren't into comedy. I mean, even the Comedy Zone at the recently renovated Holiday Inn is struggling to reopen, and that's just kind of like a franchise mainstay. Yeah. It would still be better than nothing. I just feel like the more venues that would host open mics outside of just music and karaoke and stuff would be nice.
Sure, different voices, and most
Just getting people on
stand-ups I know-
stage.
Most
Just
stand-ups I know, they start watching. And they work their way up from.
And eventually they get that confidence. They're like, I could do
do better than that. That's where it always comes from.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I could do that. If that guy could do it, I could definitely do it.
Yeah, I mean, that was kind of my attitude with the Secret Society and watching Jess. I was like, well, I'm kind of abrasive and I suck as a human, but I guess I'll go on stage. And if people hate me, then I guess they'll let me know. They just won't come to the next show.
I think that's how a lot of us do it. Because honestly, that's how I started. I was so bad, I hated myself.
Yeah, and then you just have to get over it.
But the people that were doing the event would not let me quit. They forced me to do it. And by the fourth time, I was like, okay, if they're okay with it,
that's what it takes.
My opinion doesn't matter. I need to just keep going ahead with it. And
that's what Jess keeps telling me with her Sage Light Vices. You have to have a really bad show where nobody comes out, the performers didn't show up, and you're just standing around going, it's 3 hours past opening time. What do I do?
My dad says builds character. He wasn't kidding. That's exactly
what happened here
what
recently with a bot show where the only people, I had one friend who was here and 2 of the acts showed up. One of the acts canceled last minute because he couldn't find a babysitter, and no one else showed up except the employees that work here. And I was like, okay. And then an hour and a half after opening time, and the guys are like, well, I gotta go. I can't just wait around. All right. Well, but it builds character.
Yeah.
And you learn from it.
You learned. I mean, It sucks.
Part of it was kind of a last minute thing. And secondarily, it was an awkward thing because it was a Black History Month event. And all the performers were Black, yet booked and hosted by me. And I tried not to make it about me.
Right, but I mean,
still, it's unavoidable that some people might be scared off by that, and there was some other tussles with some other local
hosts, though. If it's about the show, nobody cares who the MC is. Believe me.
True.
Nobody
but
cares.
Some people, like, honestly would say a lot of people came to the Secret Society. They had no idea who's performing. They literally took it off your reputation and credibility.
Yeah.
That if you're promoting it and you booked it, well, I guess I'll give it a dang chance.
That was not lost on me.
No, but I'm just saying, like, that's a thing. Just like going to a convention where, the MC and maybe a few hot acts who are, some national TV personality or something, a movie star comes in or a voice actor, and all of a sudden that Comic-Con's full, but they're enjoying everything.
Yeah.
You
just have to keep taking it on the chin. You just have to take punch after punch. And you got to be beat down a few times and refuse to quit doing it. And
exactly.
It comes once you have once you get a reputation for integrity. That is the best thing you can possibly do, because once people believe in you, they're going to give things a chance that are ridiculous, like doing a local web show. That's ridiculous.
No, I'm glad for it, because the more the better. I want as much alternative media and media out there. I won't even call this alternative, because anyone can access it anywhere off of numerous platforms. You can go on to Patreon, you can go on to YouTube.
And the thought is, people live uptown. They don't come downtown. How would they know who the people are that are creating the downtown culture without ever actually coming here? If they can meet some of these people and come downtown and, I recognize that person. I know where they're coming from.
They're spelling so many rumors, because I'm an admin for the you grew up in Johnson City, if you remember, Facebook group.
Right.
Ironically enough. And dispelling the rumors about the downtown being just a bunch of murderous crack whores.
I keep hearing that to this day. It's ridiculous.
And the evils of Newman's, which, it's an acquired taste. It's not my most favorite place, but it's a place, and it's there.
See, I love Newman's. I've been going there since.
I don't hate it. It's just not my first go-to. Yeah, and I'm not even arguing against it. Like, I'm not a big karaoke person, but if someone I knew wanted to do karaoke, that'd be the first place I'd take them.
Sure,
first.
It's not I wouldn't call it a dangerous place, any more so than any place with pool tables is going to be a dangerous place.
Or any place where people are getting drunk on Saturday night.
Sure.
I mean...
sometimes it can be comedic. Like, there was one time where Jess and a friend were out there, and they were getting hit on by some, like, older gentleman in like his 60s, and he was clearly, because he kept pulling his wallet out and trying to flash his money and all this stuff and talking to him, and she was so drunk she had no idea. She's like, oh, he was hitting on me? Okay, I don't know. And I thought it was just hilarious because I stepped in to kind of intervene just to go, hey, just kind of do my alternate, I'll whisk the girls away. So, right. But it was, I don't know, I don't hate the place, but I really despise when the news media or the people in comment threads on the news articles or in Facebook groups characterize venues like that as, oh, that one time there was a shooting there 10 years ago that wasn't even in front of the venue. It was in a parking lot a quarter of a mile away. Like, that's what ended up killing the Battery.
Right.
Was the way the press reported it made it sound like someone was murdered in the restaurant almost. Yeah. And it was just poor wording.
And the same thing happened to Capone. Before it was Capone's.
Oh,
it was Gatsby's.
Yeah, Gatsby's.
And a very similar thing happened, and that was in front of Gatsby's. There were shots fired, and that just destroyed what little credibility that Gatsby's had left at the time.
Isn't that what happened to the Sophisticated Otter?
No,
there was like
that was it was an underground sting that the police and the TBI did for underage drinking. It was around a time where they were going around everywhere. It's one of the reasons that Tom Seaton at the firehouse stopped serving alcohol together, because he got the tip that they were doing that. Oh. So he's just like, okay, we're just not even going to deal with this anymore. I was looking for an excuse. There's one.
And by that time, the Sophisticated Otter, which had once been a great microbrewery restaurant,
it was
had kind of turned into a club. It turned into just a dance club, and they didn't. The beers they made were made by, I think it was the guy that learned from the brewmaster.
So that's a tough sell.
The beers were not finished anymore, and I mean, I actually at that time I was working with the owner.
That's around the time that the Blue Plum was still called the Spring Street Festival, I think.
Yeah, I used to go to that. That's when I
remember going to that.
I didn't go to it for years
because I went to the Otter like right after that.
Yeah.
Till 3 a.m. or something. It's so sad to think that. I don't know, that venue is so great though, and I'm glad that building's still used. Maybe not my preferential choice, but it's better than empty.
But I'm not going to go see it anytime soon. I mean, I used to hang out in that building, and I often wonder what it looks like now. But I'm not going to bust into somebody's church and go, I used to get drunk right over there.
I hear you had a disgraced ETSU chef that embezzled. Create a restaurant there. Actually, so many little deep stories like that.
Across the street, or up the street, is Everett's, which used to be in this building.
Yeah.
And Everett back then was known as he was the best bartender in Johnson City. He worked at the Sophisticated Otter, and everybody else was buying beer. My friends were always getting his cocktails. So that's kind of where he built his reputation to make.
I love that though. When that's one of the big things in like bigger cities is like you get that underground nightclub like New York or something. The bartenders create their own personality, and that's who you follow. I love that.
Yeah. And there are a couple bartenders like that in town that where they go is kind of where the business comes, and they kind of, you'll always see them when a new restaurant opens. It's like, there's that guy. He makes the best drinks. I rarely see them last more than a month or two, because once the places start slacking off a little bit, they move on to the next big place, and that's their thing. They just move and start restaurants.
Yeah, they're getting that early opening, high pay and tips,
and it gets them a little extra money, and they get to continue seeing their regulars.
There's a lot of cooks and dishwashers that do that. Like when Logan's Roadhouse came into town, they brought in a lot of out of town folks that basically they stayed here, and they kind of did that hopping to different restaurants because. I don't know if it's still the case, but Logan's Roadhouse, it's interesting. It's one of the few teaching restaurants where they actually bring in people to learn how to be managers.
There. She was a trainer for years and years and years. She finally moved. They kept calling her back even after she quit. They're like, "Will you come train for us? We'll pay you a whole bunch of money and send you to these other places to train." And I mean, years and years she did that, and she was really good at it.
Yeah,
I got a lot of free burgers.
No, I'm always fascinated by that because it's like apparently the perfect market to where you can train up managers where it's busy enough to get the real experience that you're supposed to manage books, manage the restaurant, manage people, but just slow enough to where you're not overwhelmed.
Yeah.
Which is kind of interesting that that's the kind of market.
Well, we're just about out of time. In your utopia of Johnson City, what would a downtown look like? I mean, you're Mr. Johnson City, and you have earned that title. I really
I
meant
hope
it
so.
when
I'm
first
working
called
for
you.
it. I appreciate that. I'll be as humble as I can about that, but not too much.
No,
I
no,
like the title, especially if it's in bold and blazoned in a marquee. I'll take it. No, I would love to see more of downtown spread out into a more multicultural fashion, and not focused on like before we were talking about just bring national chains in. I'd like to see a nice blend of the two, less interpersonal warfare amongst people that think it's a zero-sum game, that no, there's more competition, more businesses, more culture, and to reach out into the actual community that older folks remember. It used to be their neighborhood, but then as they got older, they left. And now some of those neighborhoods are filled with, say, minorities, like Carver Park and the Keystone area were affectionately known in like 60 years ago as like primarily lower middle class white folks. Now it's primarily Latinos and Black Americans. And I'd love to see the downtown businesses actually reach out on Market Street, Main Street, and Broadway and all this stuff, going out past the Municipal Center building, City Hall, reaching out past the bus station and actually connecting it and ignoring the whole divide of the railroad tracks to bring back some of the, focus more on the history, like the Tweetsie Railroad, John Sevier, and all that. Like literally one of my future goals is, maybe even when the Hands-On Museum moves out, depending, is my friend in Orlando and we had visited the Museum of Death in New Orleans, and her and I both want to start up a museum, and I want to focus it in Johnson City with the bulk of the Northeast Tennessee history, with a little bit of flair, some darker edges to it, because there's a lot of dark history.
Absolutely.
And I think that would be something that is sorely needed, because we just recently had the Tri-City Segway tours open up. I would love to have a place where a brick and mortar place that had a gift shop and a coffee shop and a full set of exhibits and curiosities of the area that you could go to. There's little pieces of it here and there, but I'd love to have it in one place. And I feel like that could be some place that could welcome people and connect them to feel like Johnson City is a more cohesive community.
Right.
Yeah.
Because there's so many boroughs. Like you look on a map, and I didn't even realize how many there were.
Yeah.
I had no idea. I didn't even know there was actually still a community called Carnegie, or like the Mountain Home District, or whatever.
And they say that Henry
West
Johnson
Davis
was originally buried out towards Carnegie, but they've lost his grave. That's why
I believe it.
The headstone.
Good old Hank.
The headstone at Oak Hill down here is just a headstone, because no one knows where his remains ended up.
Well, and the people around here don't realize just how similar they are in culture, background, history. They just need to accept it and extend a hand out to one another and go, hey, you like wings? I like wings.
Right.
Let's talk.
We can't change the world, but we can make a change in our community.
Oh yeah, that's my outlying political philosophy. If you can't fix your neighborhood and your community, then what the heck are you doing halfway around the globe? It's a waste of time.
I agree with that, because I can't affect anything but where I live.
Yeah, it's a Yertle the turtle concept. I own what I see.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the thing in my neighborhood. And this is just a small plug. For anyone that's in Johnson City or even the Tri-Cities, I highly recommend, if it's already there, then look it up. If it's not, make one. It's called nextdoor.com. It's a great app that's somewhat similar to a mix of Craigslist and Facebook, to where it's only for the prospective neighborhood you're in, like the one I signed up for, Seminole Woods. I became the lead on it, and they send on your behalf whatever, you pick a mapped area on a map, and that's the neighborhood that you choose. It can match up to what actually a map says it is, like Seminole Woods. And then they, on your behalf, will send out postcards to each and every address within that section and say, go to this website, nextdoor.com, in my case, /Seminole Woods.
That's cool.
And invites them to sign up. And then I can verify them, whatever. And now there's a social network just for your neighborhood. So that way, if there's a lost dog, if a car got broken into, there's a yard sale, you need home repairs, you got scammed on a home repair, whatever, it's focused just on your neighborhood. And it's been invaluable in my neighborhood. And there's already at least 6 or 7 in Johnson City.
That's a good idea. I'll add that to the description of this video. This is, we're currently in part 2 of this video, I can already tell.
Yeah, sorry.
No.
There's just so much stuff.
That's
Like, my
fine.
brain just keeps pouring out
That's
more.
another day off we get. When
No, it's
but
just,
I'll put that in the show notes so that folks can click on it. And I think that's brilliant because it's easy to live. I lived in the Techno-Bohemia compound for 7 years.
and I think you're
Never
technically in the
talked-
West Davis community, I think.
Yeah. I never talked to the person in the apartment next to me, and I lived downstairs from Bailey for years before we said hi.
Yeah,
And that was only because my dog's a jerk.
that's true.
That's a story for another day.
No, but that's nice. Because some people are a little scared to go talk to their neighbor,
Yeah.
look at them. Yet some of the people happen to be like the first one that will walk up to a complete stranger at a gas station and say, "Oh, you should speak the language."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yet they won't talk to their neighbor, and I'm like, "What are you talking about?"
You know, my new neighbor, she immediately baked us cookies and
Yeah.
said hi. And I was
I
like,
love that. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
I know, it's
What's,
nice.
what are you doing?
Like, I had no idea for years that right down the hill from my street lives Fred Saussman, who is an infamous author and
He's a
radio
good cook.
personality. I have all of his books. And then he also works for WETS, the radio station. I had no idea he was
one of
just my
bosses
neighbor.
for years out at the university.
I had no clue that he was just down the street from me, because I always knew that my neighborhood was affectionately nicknamed Scholar Holler, because that's initially when my grandparents moved in. They had talked to the president of what at the time was Hamilton Bank and convinced them to give loans, because this is way before computing networks and stuff. So all the stuff was paperwork driven and phone calls. So my grandparents convinced to give loans when they were scouting out-of-state teachers to come for the College of Medicine, and those loans paid for a bunch of new houses to be built in the Seminole Woods area,
Oh.
which is interesting.
Yeah, that is interesting.
To wrap up, you just gave me an idea. Would you be willing to participate in?
Yes. No.
Well, first I have to plug.
Only if there's peanut butter. No.
First, I have to. We got to wrap up. We're running out of time. But
Yeah.
first, I want to plug that Bailey and I are going to be at Johnson City Brewing Company on March 22nd, next Thursday, and
If you haven't been there, go.
yeah, it's a fantastic
Very good.
place. They're giving away free pizza that night. Everybody gets free Scratch Pizza. We're going to be talking to Jamie, the owner of Scratch Pizza, doing a little interview because it's a part of their Pizza Entrepreneur series. They want to talk about running a pizza restaurant, and I think
Now
that's
that's the
fascinating.
Americana I can
Yeah.
get behind.
Yeah, I think that's great. Well, that got me thinking, would you be willing to participate? And I want to get some more panelists eventually, but we could do another special like at Willow Tree. We'll just talk about Johnson City history. I'll get some big
amazing.
photographs.
Like Chris Dula, because he's a reenactor for the Liberty Saga stuff.
Oh, right. I forgot about that.
That would be amazing. Yeah, I would love that. Just
and I'm thinking I'll just
pour over
have
it.
a projector with big photographs, and I just want to pick everyone's brain extemporaneously right there without a whole lot of preparation.
Tweezy history.
And let's just talk
all of
history
it.
for an hour or
Rocky
two.
Mount.
think
Oh,
that'd
that'd be
be-
amazing.
I think that'd be a lot of fun, and it would also be a community project. Only people that are interested in their community are going to show up. So we'll do this live, and we'll record it, and I think that'd be a whole lot of fun.
Yeah.
It'll be.
Would you
it'll
want to do it downtown, or maybe like say the Great Fossil Site or something,
be either
or
way.
wherever? I don't care.
Either way,
I just feel like any business owner would be smart to jump on that immediately and
I
host
was
that.
thinking downtown because I don't have to drive too far.
Yeah,
But-
same here. Yeah, same
But it
here.
really doesn't matter. Any place that people
Gosh,
would.
that is
We
fantastic
could even
idea.
probably do it at ETSU. I could probably get a forum there. But that's in the future. It was just an idea that hit me, and I thought it would be worth
Oh, that's
mentioning.
fantastic because I'm pretty sure nobody has done that as far as I can tell.
I can't think of that either, especially something that's not just a lecture, because lectures are boring. We want to have fun. We want to have a conversation like we're having now, and get an audience into it and let them.
Yeah, because there are people that focus like on just the railroad history, and they know every
Right.
ounce of it from the Cranberry Mines out to Knoxville and Atlanta. They know every piece of every track, Doe River Gorge, the whole bit. And one of those people could come out and just wax poetic about the 5 railroads that come through here.
And that would give us
Used to.
plenty more days off where we don't have to
That's
live show.
true. I
So
love
there
it.
we go. But I appreciate you hanging out with us, Joseph. It's been a really great
Oh,
conversation.
it's been real.
And we'll have you back again sometime. We'll talk about other things. We'll find something else, and we'll do that special event.
And I'm going to lastly promote my one hashtag I keep promoting to my friend.
Everything you got.
We built this city on Johnson City.
Oh.
Because it's just a friend of mine, she just came up with that. I was like, it's bizarre, but it works.
Yeah, that does work. We'll add that one too. We'll make sure to tag stuff.
Because it ironically just fits.
Yeah, it does.
But yeah, we want to appreciate you. Also, we want to thank you. You were one of the chief folks behind our GoFundMe that made this equipment that we're shooting this on possible. Can't thank you enough in person.
I feel like I bribed you to be on this show.
No,
now.
not at all. No.
I don't take more.
I had already talked about having you on the show, and I knew that, and I'd already figured we can get a hold of you early and kind of shake down the equipment.
And sign up for the Patreon.
Yes,
that's going to
I
be.
just did yesterday. You need to do it.
Thank you so much.
You need to do it. It's worth it.
Patreon.com/hometown. You make a donation, you pledge an amount, and you'll donate that amount every time we release an episode. We're back to 2 episodes a week right now. We won't do any more without giving you plenty of notice. We'll let you know.
Plus, you can set up a max if you want
absolutely.
in the app or on the page.
Last few months, we've been transitioning. We've only been doing 1 episode. We're going back to 2 for a little while. But if you sign up for the Patreon, we're going to start putting some stuff on there, like the Cliff interview. As of this recording, that's going to go live Thursday for the public, but I'm going to put it up for the Patreons this afternoon when I get home. Ooh. And so Patreons will get an early look at that, and then I'll get the second part of that will be Tuesday, and Patreons will see it here in a day or so. So we're trying to get more stuff out for the Patreons, the patrons to make it a little more worth your time, and you get everything we put out. I do this in an audio podcast, and we do the video podcast, and Facebook sometimes, and you'll get sick of hearing from me. And maybe one day Bailey will write something.
Maybe.
She'll take over and kick you out.
But
I'm just planning my takeover.
That's right. One day I'm like, hey.
Dark horse.
But no, Bailey, it was what, 20 Patreons, I think, was what you originally promised in the first.
That's right.
The first one, when we get 20 Patreons, you'll
then I'll start doing
write
stuff
regularly. So we got a ways to go. We can do it. I believe in you. But this is Hometown, East Tennessee. Thank you so much, Joseph.
And thank you to the Midtown Mecca Lounge.
Absolutely.
Because this is a fantastic venue to do this.
They're not open tonight. They open for us, and I can't thank them enough.
Yeah.
They even let me borrow an extension cord. How awesome is that?
Come out on St. Patty's Day. They've got a massive show, massive lineup.
Oh, that's great. I can just walk up here, so I'll be here.
Oh, yeah. Great local bands.
Until next time, we'll see you, East Tennessee.